Hi, my name's Kevin Carr, and I'm on staff at an organization called Sheltering Wings. Our mission is to break the cycle of domestic violence. And we do this by serving any victim from any background of any form of domestic violence with the same love and compassion that we believe Christ would serve them with if he were in our place. You see, all domestic violence is about power and control. An abuser does everything he or she can to exert authority over their victim. Violence typically happens in a circular pattern. It starts with some tension that begins to build. You hear victims a lot of times talking about having to walk on eggshells, but inevitably will always explode in some form of violence. And that violence can take the shape of physical violence. Of course, we always think of that first when we think of domestic violence. Hitting, biting, slapping, pushing. It can also take the form of emotional abuse. Threats, intimidation, name-calling, gaslighting. All those tactics are used by someone who's an emotional abuser. Many perpetrators will take advantage of the person they're abusing sexually. Spiritual abuse and economic abuse are all also forms of violence, and when that violence has begun to erupt, it becomes very harmful. And abusers typically, once they've erupted in some form of violence, they have a period of time where they shift blame, maybe even to the person they're abusing. Or there's even a time where they may become really sorrowful and apologetic and make promises to never do it again, and then begin a process of being very kind and sweet and romantic. Call that the honeymoon phase. But all along, the tension begins to build again, and eventually it comes to the point where it boils over and erupts, and the cycle begins all again. There was a church on the north side of Brownsburg called Cornerstone Christian Church that operated a food pantry. And several of the volunteers got to know some of the clients that they'd served. These ladies began to open up that they were experiencing domestic violence in their homes, and they wanted to know what they could do. So they began researching, started raising funds, and Sheltering Wings was born. When Sheltering Wings opened its doors in 2002, we had 44 beds. And those 44 beds were quickly filled with women and their children. It became obvious quickly that Sheltering Wings was going to need to grow if we were going to meet the need. Around 2012, Sheltering Wings was expanded to 68 beds. Along the way, our board and our staff and our leadership discovered that men were also victims of domestic violence. So we were able to build out an additional unit where we now house men, which brings our total to 80 beds in our facility. Our program consists of 4 primary areas. We know that nobody really begins to heal until they truly feel safe. And so our facility is a state-of-the-art security system, and we keep the safety and the privacy of our residents at top concern. If they're truly going to break free from the cycle of domestic violence, they have to begin to feel safe enough to start to heal. All of our residents have the opportunity to work with our case managers, and they can put together personal development plans. The purpose of those plans is to simply provide an opportunity for those residents to regain or gain, sometimes for the first time, the skills that they need, the competencies they need, and the confidence they need in order to be able to move out of here, but have the life skills in place that they need in order to stay independent and to stay strong and stable. Many residents who come here need help with mental health issues. Anxiety and depression are 2 major issues that people who have been abused deal with as they process trauma. Sometimes people need help recovering from an addiction or dependency. Sometimes it's something like job training or the ability to build a resume, skill to manage finances, or maybe there's some work that needs to be done with the parent and children, and so we have parenting courses. It's very difficult for survivors to break away. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of bravery and a lot of resolve. We're going to take every opportunity to help them strengthen and grow so they don't have to return to places where they're vulnerable. Statistics tell us that children who grow up in homes where abuse is occurring are up to 11 times more likely to become abusers or to enter into abusive relationships when they're adults. We do everything we can while children in our facility to help them learn to make sense of what they've experienced, to help them learn what healthy relationships look like, and to teach them how to expect to be treated as they grow up, and how not to repeat the patterns that they may have experienced. At any given time, roughly half of our residents are children. They're here with their parents who are escaping abuse, and together we want to help them heal. So children's programming is a really important part of what we do. Years ago, our leaders discovered that if we really want to break the cycle of domestic violence, that we were going to have to do more than just respond when domestic violence occurs. We recognized that we needed to prevent domestic violence from happening, and we do that through a really strong, robust prevention and education program. As people in the community become aware of what domestic violence is and the signs that they should be looking for, they really help us to be the first line of defense when someone they know or they love is experiencing domestic violence. Our prevention and education initiatives take place all over the community, but probably most importantly, they take place in our schools. In addition to trainings in schools, we do a lot of work with churches, with workplaces, and just in the general community. Whenever we have the opportunity to talk to someone about what domestic violence is and about the role that they can play in helping to prevent it, we realize that we expand our capacity and what we're able to do as an organization. As more and more people become advocates and become aware, we can hopefully stem the tide of domestic violence. All together, those 4 major initiatives are making an impact and making a change in our community, helping break people free from the cycle of domestic violence and hopefully, prayerfully, even preventing it before it happens in the first place. No matter what kind of scar abuse leaves, whether it's physical or emotional, no abuse is okay. And there's never a circumstance where it's excusable for someone to abuse someone else. It's extremely difficult for someone to break out of the cycle of domestic violence, but with the right kind of support, with the right kind of encouragement, and with a lot of bravery, it can happen. It happens here all the time. If you or anyone you know is experiencing domestic violence, or even if you think you're experiencing domestic violence but you're not sure, there's help for you. We have a 24/7 helpline that's staffed by advocates who are trained. They'll answer your call and they'll help to guide you. That helpline number is area code 317-745-1496. You can call that number anytime, night or day, and someone will pick up the line who can help you, who can answer your questions, who can help you process what steps you need to take to free you from a situation where you're being abused. We're here to help you get back on your feet and to live the stable kind of independent life that you've wanted to live.